Hey everyone, I am going to try something I have never done before today. One thing I've always wanted to do is take a cast piece of aluminum and bring it to a smooth brush-like finish. And I've got the perfect opportunity to do that today. I don't know if this is the best idea to try it on a shock body or not, but what do I have to lose? I'm going to go for it. I went and picked up a few supplies earlier to try out on the shock body. We've got a couple polycarbide wheels, a knotted wire wheel, and a brass wire wheel, as well as a Scotch-Brite pad, of course, to finish it off. As you can see, there's a textured, kind of rough finish on the shock body from casting. So the goal is to remove all those casting marks and bring the shock body to a smooth brush finish. Kind of similar to how an aluminum frame would look. Let's take a look down here. So I kind of want it looking just like that. And if everything goes to plan, I'm going to do the same with the fork lugs as well. Let's bring them to a smooth, super sick finish. The first wheel I'm going to try out is this polycarbide wheel. Now it's meant for this type of grinder right here, but I'm going to give it a shot on the bench grinder. Looks like the wheel is ripping right through those casting marks. Just want to make sure I'm not taking off too much material here though. And also I want it to be a nice even finish. Don't want any dips or valleys in it, but that is going to be tough with a round shock body. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to try that braided wire wheel now. That wheel definitely cuts through the casting marks, but it is a little too aggressive for aluminum. Now I'm going to give this brass wire wheel a shot. I'm kind of thinking it's not going to be aggressive enough. Yeah, it is not really touching those casting marks. This would be more for a finishing grade. I've got one more wheel to try here. Alright, what this is a rubber drum that expands when you spin it, and it holds this piece of sandpaper into place. I think this sanding drum could work pretty well. I just don't have the correct grit sandpaper for it. Seem to do a pretty good job at smoothing out those casting marks though. Just to get an idea how this will look, I'm gonna throw on the Scotch-Brite wheel and give it a little buff. This is the type of finish I'm going for right here. I'm thinking the polycarbide wheel is my best option right now. I'm just going to do the bottom part for now and see how I like it before I move on to the rest of it. And obviously, you don't want to hit the threads at all. That will destroy them. That's about all I can do on the bench grinder with that wheel. I'm going to move on to the drill with the other polycarbide wheel. And for this little casting line, I'm going to knock that down with a file. I've got all the casting marks ground down. I'm going to bring it over to the Scotch-Brite wheel now and see what kind of finish I can put on it. So that is pretty dang close to the finish I had in mind when I started. I'm thinking I'm going to need something kind of in between of the Scotch-Brite wheel and the carbide wheel I was using earlier. But as far as the final finish, like the luster and the shine of it, I am really happy about that. Definitely wasn't going for a polished look. Just kind of want that brushed aluminum feel to it. Now I'm going to put the carbide wheel back on the grinder and buff out the rest of the shock body. This is going to be fun. So I've been using this mini grinder with a small sandpaper roll on the end of it. It's been working really well. So I decided to kick it up a notch and get an actual die grinder with a cartridge roll on the end of it. Let's see how this thing rips. As you can see, it is working amazing. My biggest concern is just trying to get it smooth and a nice even finish on it. So the issue with this die grinder is it's not variable speed, so it's spinning way too fast to really have control of it. Alright guys, after trying pretty much every combination of tool and sandpaper that I could think of, here is what I came up with. That little grinder with a cartridge roll on the end of it. Gives me a lot of control over the grinding and just nice and super simple to use. I mean, I had tried using a drill, the bigger die grinder, and an air tool as well, and none of them really seemed to work as well as the little grinder. The best option should have been this air die grinder, but since my air compressor sucks and it can't really keep up, that didn't really work too well. At this stage, I've got all the casting marks ground off. Just gonna see if I can smooth out this finish and get it nice and even. And here is what I'm hoping that's gonna work. I picked up this little bit more aggressive Scotch-Brite wheel. I'm gonna put it on the grinder for kind of an intermediate stage finish, and then use just the standard Scotch-Brite wheel here for the final finish. Instead of doing the whole shock body with the Scotch-Brite wheel, I just did it in this one spot. I'm going to switch over to the least aggressive wheel and finish it off. See if I like it just in this one section here. So that right there is pretty much the exact finish I was after, and I'm really happy about that. The more aggressive Scotch-Brite wheel is really saving this project. Man, this Scotch-Brite wheel is working a lot better than I had imagined. All these little tooling marks from the cartridge rolls are coming right out with the Scotch-Brite wheel. And since it's nice and flexible, it gives it a nice contoured finish. You know, isn't all blocky and sharp edged like the cartridge rolls left it as. So I'm just gonna continue buffing away on this thing, and I should be done in no time. Pretty much got the first stage of Scotch-Briting all done, but there's a few areas here, mostly in between the reservoir and the shock body, where I can't really get to with the bigger wheel. Got these smaller Scotch-Brite attachments that I'm going to use right there. It is finally time to put the finishing touches on the shock body. Well guys, that is it. Shock body is now completely done. Very happy with how it came out. So why didn't I polish this thing all the way out? Well, a polished finish, I'm talking like a mirror shine, is really tough to keep up on. But a finish like this, however, can be maintained pretty easily with just a Scotch-Brite pad. Plus, I think it looks trick. Alrighty guys, before I move on to the forks, I've got some exciting news to share with you all. I have been waiting a while for this. Just roll the clip. I wasn't born with any special talent. Nothing has come easy to me. Everything I've achieved has come through a dedication to my passion. But it's not about what you do, it's why you do it. And I know what makes me happy and gives me purpose. Motorcycles have always been a staple in my life. I dream, breathe, bleed dirt bikes. That is something I'll never outgrow. It gives me the sense of being in my prime. To me, being in my prime is doing the absolute best I can, simply out of passion. I don't need to have the best of everything, nicest house, coolest bikes, fast cars. Just being able to put forth my best effort into something I love means the most to me. And being able to share that with the world is the cherry on top. I'm Cameron Niemela, and I am in my prime. So there it is. I am super stoked. Prime MX is my own company, and literally I've been testing hats for like 4 or 5 years now. And let me turn this thing around. Really happy with how they came out. Just a nice, clean, simple look. I'll be starting with hats for now. I've also got stickers on the website. And then down the road, I'll be moving into t-shirts, sweatshirts, beanies, that kind of thing. And then also gloves, bar pads, and grips too. That's kind of my idea right now. But we'll see where this whole thing goes. If you guys could go show Prime MX some love, I would be forever grateful. The website is www.prymemx.com, and I'll also put the link as the first one down in the description. Thank you. All right, these fork lugs are definitely going to be tricky, but I cannot wait to get started on them. I'm thinking I should be able to knock off the majority of the casting marks with the Scotch-Brite wheel, and then I'll move on to those cartridge rolls. I was able to get a good chunk of the lug knocked out with that Scotch-Brite wheel. Now it is on to grinding away with the cartridge rolls. So I've got the fork lug ground down with the roughest sandpaper. Pretty scratched up and rough looking right now, but I'm gonna move on to the 240 grit now and get this thing looking pretty. What I've been doing as these cartridge rolls are wearing down is peeling back a little bit of the paper, ripping it off, and I'll have a fresh layer of sandpaper here. I'm all done with the 240 grit sandpaper. Now I'm gonna move on to the fine grit Scotch-Brite and finish her off. I've got one fork lug completely done, and I've got to admit, I made a ton of mistakes on this one. The next one should turn out a lot better. So the biggest downfall with this one is it was hard to get everything smooth. Definitely didn't turn out as I had hoped. There's a few spots, like right here, just kind of ended up with a pocket there. But for the most part, it ain't too bad. Alright, on this one, I'm going to focus on getting everything smooth and consistent. No dips, valleys, or ridges left over. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to start with the cartridge roll. I believe this is 120 grit. And then finish her off with the Scotch-Brite cross buff wheel. Basically just Scotch-Brite on the end of a shank. And by the way, I'm using a drill on everything here. Just gives me the most control out of any tool I've tried. Alrighty, I'm all done with the fork lugs and the shock body. One last thing before I completely finish up. I'm gonna clean up the shock shaft with the Scotch-Brite wheel. Overall, I am pretty satisfied with how this stuff turned out. Although I kind of butchered up the fork lugs a bit. But that is part of the learning process. I had a ton of fun trying to figure this out though. Well, that was quite the experiment, but the end result wasn't too bad. I'm glad I tried it out. In the next video, I've got something really cool planned for the rear shock, so make sure you check back for that one. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you later.